Hey, welcome back to building yet another app in the course. For all of you who are interested in web development with Django, Django is the most powerful web framework for Python. This is a great opportunity to advance your skills. So what you're looking at is the app we're going to build together throughout today's videos and tomorrow's videos as well. This is a web app for restaurant owners and their customers. So if you're a customer, for example, the restaurant gives you access to this website where you can see all the dishes you can order, and also you can see what dishes are available at the moment. For example, this dessert here, panna cotta, is not available. So on one side you have customers who can view the menu. On the back end, you have the admin interface. So we're also going to build an admin interface which can be accessed by the cooks of the restaurant. So the cooks can add more meals in here by pressing that add button there. For example, let's say seafood pasta, and then you give a description like the ingredients. So pasta, seafood, for example. You set the price, let's say 12.99, and then you define what category as a cook. Is this a salad, a starter, or a main dish? Let's put it on main dishes. And the author, so that's the name of the cook, the username of the cook. You can have multiple cooks who can manage the admin interface, and then you set the status as available or unavailable. So if you press on save, and then you go to the website, you refresh, and seafood pasta is added here. As a cook, you can go back to the admin interface, and then you can make that unavailable if you want. Press on save, and then when the customers refresh the website, they can see seafood pasta in strike-through font. So now you would ask, how can customers access this website? Well, for that we can create a QR code. So with a QR code, the customers can scan that QR code using their mobile phones, and that QR code will take them to the URL of this website, so where they can see this web app. So as a bonus, I'm also going to show you in the next video how to create a QR code with Python. So that QR code will be used then by the customers to visit the URL of the website. In addition, clicking each of these will take you to another page where you can see the details of each of the items. So you can also make a blog out of this template. So this is an example of a restaurant menu app, but the same idea, you can use the same structure to make a blog. For example, you'd have like several blogs which can be clickable, so as links, and then you can click on any of these blog in the list here, and that will take you to the actual blog content. So this will give you a very deep understanding of how Django works. So let's begin. I'll see you in the next videos. Hey, welcome to the first video where we'll start our app. So let's start the fun with coding in Python. We'll begin by creating a QR code image. So there are other tools to do that, but we'll do that with Python because why not? It's very easy. So just create a PyCharm project where we will create both the QR image and also the Django app. So this is my empty project, and I'll create a qr.py file. So this will contain the code which will generate a QR code, and that QR code, when scanned with a mobile device, it will open the URL to our project. To create QR codes with Python, you want to use the QR code library. I just selected my interpreter here because it was not selected by PyCharm by default. So now Python 3.11 is my Python interpreter. So now I can install QR code. So open the terminal, make sure that venv is activated. You see these parentheses here with venv inside, and then run pip install QR code. We also need another library It's called Pillow. This is an image processing library. Sorry, pip install Pillow. This is an image processing library, so QR code needs that library to be able to process the QR code image. Even though we don't install it, it's used on the background by QR code. So QR codes, and then you want to create an image with QR code.make, and here is where you pass the URL which you want to open when the user scans that generated QR code. So in our case, that would be 127.0.0.1 colon 8000. Why is it this one? Because locally, when we run our Django project, the app will be accessed on this URL. Now, when you deploy your app, you want to come back to this piece of code and then just change this to the actual domain, to the public domain you'll have, and then you want to run this code again and you'll get a new QR code. That will be the QR code you want to give to the restaurant, to your client. So you are the programmer, perhaps a restaurant is your client, so you want to give them that QR code. So then they can give that QR code to restaurant customers. So that will create an image object, but it's just a Python object. It is existing in the Python domain, in the interpreter. You want to create a file out of that, an image file. So to do that, you want to do image.save qr.png. So that will be the name of the file. Now I can run this code, and there is the QR codes. So that's an image file. If you scan it with your mobile phone, it will take you to this URL. Right. That's about creating QR codes in Python. So with that, we're ready to build our Django app. I'll see you in the next video. Hey, welcome back. In this video, we'll set up our Django app. So we created a QR code previously. Let's close those files and go to the terminal. So just here, you want to install Django first. Pip install Django. So that's the first step. You install Django, then you create a project, then you create an app for that project, then connect the app to the project, and then run the app to see the results on the website, on the browser. So the second step was to create a Django project. To do that, you do Django-admin start project my site space dot. I've explained this command previously, but again, what that will do is it will create a my site directory in the current directory. The current directory is app 18 restaurant menu. So now here you'll see, if you do a reload from disk, my site will show up. So that folder with all the Django files. So these are default project files. Now this project doesn't have any apps yet. We can add one or more apps to this Django project using Python manage.py. So manage.py is one of the generated files. It's located in the root directory here, manage.py. Space start app, this is the command. And then give a name to your app. Let's call it restaurant underscore menu. Don't have spaces in the app name. Press enter. That should create a new directory, restaurant menu. So both my site and restaurant menu are two directories in the root directory. So we have an app, but we need to connect that app to the my site project by going to my site settings.py and then scroll down to find the installed apps. These here are some default apps, and then after the last comma you want to press enter to create a new line and then create a new empty string, and inside the string you want to copy paste the name of your app. So restaurant menu, copy it and paste it inside here. Make sure not to have spaces in the string inside the quotes, and then leave a comma here so that if we add more apps to our Django project, then we can do that in here. Right, so that's a list of strings. Each string points to the name of an app. Save the file with Ctrl S or Command S, and then let's run the project. So to do that, to run a project, you do python manage.py followed by the run server command. Press enter, and so that should display this URL. You can click that, and that should show you the default website. So we see this default website because we haven't mapped any URLs. So we haven't instructed Django yet what to do when the homepage is visited. So that's something we'll do in the next videos. So let's keep going. In the previous video we set up a project and an app, and we see this on the front end. And now it's time to code the app, and we will continue with a bottom-top approach. Bottom meaning that we will first build the database model. So the database model is like the structure of your web apps. It defines the data. So I can show you the end product. So this will be the end product, what we'll build at the end. So that's how our web app will look like on the front end. So now we can see what data we have here, right? And based on that, we can define a database model. So what data do we have here? Well, I can see that we have like categories like starters and salads and main dishes, right? So that's one data set we have. Then we have meals like pizza and Greek salad. Then we have descriptions for each meal. Then we have prices for each meal. So these data, what I just mentioned, category, meal, descriptions, each of these will be a database table field, a column in the database. So let's go ahead and create those columns. I'll just stop the app, go to the terminal, press Ctrl C to stop your app from running. And then you want to go to restaurant menu directory and then double click on models.py. And we want to create the model in here. As I explained in the previous app of the course where we use Django, what we do is we write a class, so let's call this item, models.model, so this inherits from the models library, from the model class of the models library. And in this class, we want to define a series of class variables. So meal is the first variable, a class variable I have just created here, which will be equal to models.char field, right? So with this first class variable, I am instructing Django to create a column in the table of our database. The database will be generated when we run the command here, python manage.py make migrations. We'll do that later, not now. And that command will get this class, will read everything we have here, and it will create one column in the table for each of these variables. So the first one will be like text containing the meal. Let's set a maximum length of 1000 characters. Let's set this as unique. So this will protect the database table from having duplicate values, duplicate meals. So that's something we don't want to happen, right? So think of it from the cook perspective and from the restaurant customers. So the cook wants to have unique meals, right? If you have a bean soup, you want to have one bean soup. You don't want to have two bean soup because that doesn't make any sense. So this is like the restriction we give to this database field. Description will be the next field, so that will represent this here. So that will be the description or the ingredients, if you like to call it like that. So this will describe that meal, that will describe that meal, and so on. So the description will be models.char field again. Let's give it a maximum length of 2000. In this case, having it set to unique is not very meaningful because it could happen then that different meals could have the same ingredients, right? So you don't want to set a unique parameter to true in here. Price is the next one. Let's do models again dot. This is a number, so you want to use a data type which works well with numbers, so decimal field. You want to have decimal places of 2, so 2 decimal points. So we have meal, we have description, we have price. We also said we want the categories, so let's have this set as meal type or category, whatever you like. Models.char field. It's better to have like some choices in here and have it equal to this variable, meal type, and that variable will be defined in here, meal type. So that's gonna be a tuple of tuples, and each tuple will have two strings. The first one will be a string with lowercase letters, and the second will be a strings with the first letter uppercase. You'll see why. So we have starters, we have salads, a comma. So it's a tuple of tuples, right? Each tuple is an item of this main tuple, therefore each item should be separated by a comma with the other items. So comma, another tuple, we have main dishes, so main underscore dishes. It's good to not to have spaces there. Main dishes. So perhaps you're starting to understand that this will be displayed on the front end, this part, and this will be used by the code inside. You'll see how exactly. And lastly, desserts. Everyone, I mean not everyone, but most people want a dessert after the meal, so that's what we have here. Yeah, that's our tuple of tuples of strings. So why did we use some choices in here, some predefined choices? Well, that's a better decision, a better way to do this, because when the cooks use the admin interface to add meals, they can add all kinds of meals there, so that's more like an infinite choices they have to add meals. But the categories is more like a finite data type where you have like 4, 5, 6 categories like starters, salads, main dishes, desserts. So the cooks in the admin interface can use like a drop-down list to select from the existing choices instead of creating their own categories, right? I hope you see the difference here. So that's a good thing to do when you have a finite list of values. Right, next. It would be good to actually have an author name attached to each meal. So perhaps you have more than one cook who will access the admin interface, who can add meals. So it's good to know who added what. So in that case, we also add this author field in the database table. I'm using a foreign key here followed by user, which is something we need to import, and I'll explain you why this. So first let's import from Django.contrib.auth.models import user. So this is a class. This class represents a database model, the user database model. So just like item is a table in the database, user is also a table in the database which contains the username, the user password as fields, as columns, right? So what we're doing here is we are creating a relationship between item, this table, and the user table. In this case, this is a many-to-one relationship, which means that many items can be associated with one user, or in other words, one user can be associated to many items. So one cook, the user is the cook, right? One cook can create more than one item. An item is a meal, right? The meal has a name, a description, so the ingredients, the price, the category, and it will also contain the user. So many to one. So one cook can create many meals. That's the relationship in here. Then what happens is a user is deleted. So you want to specify that behavior here with an onDelete parameter. If you want that all meals that a user added should be deleted, you want to pass models.cascade. So if cook John is deleted from the users table, this can be done in the admin interface, right? If John is deleted, this will delete all the meals that John had created. If that is something you don't want to do, then instead of cascades, you want to say protect. In that case, you'll not be able to delete the user, and therefore the meals will also not be deleted. Another option would be to use set_null. That means if the author is deleted, then in the items table where you have all the meals and you have the author field, that author field will be set from John to null. So no value, but the meals, the records, will still be there, right? However, the author name will not be associated. I hope that makes sense. I'd go for just protect. I think that's a better choice here. Then we can create a status field as well, models.integer field. I'll explain what this does. Choices again is equal to status, and default is equal to 0. And then we create a status variable up here above the class. Status is a variable, a tuple of tuples. Each tuple will have 2 items, 0 unavailable, comma 1 available. So by default, the meal will be unavailable, or you can set it to available, whatever you like. So remember I showed you that some meals like panna cotta here is unavailable. So that is the field that defines that. And so the cooks can use the admin interface to set either 0 or 1 the status of a meal. So again, we have a finite number of values. Therefore, we use choices, just like we did with the meal type up here. Lastly, we'll add 2 more fields here. Date created first, and then date updated. So the date created will be a field from models.datetime field. Same goes for the other field. So these 2 now will have an auto now add set to true, and this one will have an auto now set to true. So that is what distinguishes these two fields. This will generate date timestamps. So whenever a cook adds a meal, an item, right, with a meal and description and price and meal type, the timestamp will be recorded in one of the table fields. So that parameter makes it possible to record the timestamp, and this other parameter records when the item is edited, when it's updated. So I think that's self-explanatory what these two will do. You'll see everything in the table later on anyway. And that's about the class variables. And lastly, let's define the str methods, which is something we also did previously in the previous app. And this will return just the self.meal class variable. So whenever the item is printed out in the admin interface, it will be represented by the meal name, right? Bean soup, for example. Yeah, that's it. So we have defined the code, we have designed the database model, but we haven't physically created a database yet. To do that, you want to run python manage.py make migrations. So this command in the terminal, execute that. I've got an error here. In the models file, choice in this line. That's the models file 22. So it should be choices. So that was a typo. So what's happening here, as you can see, is that when we run this command, Django reads this file and it tries to create a database table. So let's run it again. Oh, again, I've got a typo in the command this time. Python manage.py make migrations. This time we get max length should be contained by car field in the meal type attribute. Yeah, we forgot to add that. So let's add a maximum length of the meal type is just a short one. So let's have it like 200. And for the price as well, maximum digits in here, max digits. Let's set it to 10. And yeah, let's run the command again. Python manage.py make migrations. This time it's successful, so we've created migrations for the model item. So we still haven't actually altered the database. We haven't created a table yet. We have these files. On the restaurant menu, these are the migrations files, which now will be executed by the command python manage.py migrate. This command will go through these two files. It will execute the code of this file, actually 0001. That was the file that was generated by the make migrations command. That file will now be executed by the migrate command. So execute that. And now a table should have been created in the db.sqlite3 database. You cannot read that file by just clicking it. You need a program, and one program you can use is db browser for SQLite. So you can download it, install it, and then go to open database, locate your app 18 in my case, the project directory, and then locate db.sqlite3, press enter to open it, go to browse, select the table you want to browse. So that's the restaurant menu item. You see, restaurant menu is the app name and item is the name of the class, right? The model. So we name this class item, and that's the name here. So select that, and here you'll see that this is a table that has all these fields. So meal, description, price, meal type, status, date created, date updated, and author ID. Among this, you also see like the auth user, so that's the other table I was talking about. So this table is associated with this table using that user model we defined in here. Yeah, so that's the database structure. That was successful, and next we are ready now to go to the next step of creating views for our modules. So with that, I'll see you in the next video. Thanks.